What's going on, guys? I wanted to talk about Damian Lillard. And as you can probably see from the title and the thumbnail of this video, it's going to be about Damian Lillard and a certain basketball team that I'm a fan of. If you're also a fan of that team, go ahead and hit that like button. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. It helps me a lot. Drop a comment, all that stuff. Very much appreciated. So Damian Lillard getting eliminated in the first round again. A superstar, a player who takes over games, sets records, blows minds, just does things that normal human beings shouldn't be capable of. Not a normal human being though. He's Dame. I think he's only missed the playoffs once in his career, and I think that was his rookie season. And ever since then, it's been first round exits and a lot of first round exits, and, made the conference finals and then got swept. And just like a lot of disappointment from his teammates and a lot of coming up short, a lot of heroics on his part that aren't reciprocated by the guys that, he needs to help put him over the top. He's beloved in Portland, Oregon, the Pacific Northwest as a whole. He's absolutely loved. He's on billboards. He does charity events, commercials. He's a part of the community. He's a superstar on the court, and he's a hero off of it. And as far as, he's ever indicated, he loves it. He loves it there. He's loyal to the soil. He's a franchise player. He doesn't want to leave. But what if he feels like he's done enough and the team hasn't done enough for him? We've seen it before with guys who are supposedly lifers with their team. They like Russell Westbrook comes to mind, of a guy who was like, after KD left, like he really embraced the city. He made every right comment about being loyal and all that stuff. I know it seems different for Dame just because, like, he just is the face of the franchise, and it seems like he doesn't want to leave. That seems to be the indication that we've gotten over the years, is that he just doesn't have any interest in leaving. He just wants to keep being the face of that franchise. But year after year, time after time, this team just can't get it right. We think they're making improvements in the offseason. We think McCollum's taking a good step. We think this, we think that, and it never comes to pass. And at some point, there's a tipping point. When you do what Dame did in Game 5, with the 55 points, the comeback, double overtime, when you do that and you still lose, it's got to sting, man. It's really got to sting, and it's got to feel like what more? What more is he capable of that he hasn't already done for them? What else do they need? And at some point, players get frustrated and they start to look elsewhere. They start to look at their buddies in Brooklyn, in Los Angeles, both teams. You start to look around the league thinking, really, the only way to win is to team up. And then you start to think, well, the Trailblazers just don't do that. They don't spend like that. They don't make trades like that. They'll trade for role players and they'll acquire, talented veterans, but they don't make the blockbuster moves. They don't dip in on the high price tag free agents. It's Portland. It's a smaller market. It just is. Those are the facts. I bring up Russell Westbrook again, of a guy who, he didn't really leave the team on bad terms necessarily. It was more like, Paul George is leaving. It looks like it's time for a rebuild, a total reset. We've tried. It's time to kind of take a step back and restart. And Russell Westbrook and the team, you know, they got him to the destination he wanted to go. They got a good return for it. Everyone seemed happy on both sides. And then they got Chris Paul and things turned out really well there too. This could be a similar situation of like, you know, Lillard looks at the franchise and says, hey, like, I'm just ready to move on. I'm ready to take on a new challenge. And I think it's time, you know, you guys probably fire Terry Stotts and maybe start a rebuild. It happens. And look, this is me speculating, and we're going to get into details in a second on how this could actually work. But I'm just, you know, it makes me wonder what's going on in his mind. So, you know, I guess this is all very speculative of me. But if you're Damian Lillard and you're looking around the league, you've made up your mind that it's time to move on, and you're trying to figure out what would be a good destination for you. You know, the team asks, we might not be able to get you where you want to go, but what teams are you thinking of? There's this huge market with an up and coming, well, one of the best scorers in the NBA, one of the best big men in the NBA, a veteran head coach who's an upgrade over your current head coach, a whole new front office with a whole new culture in one of the greatest cities in the world. You'd consider it, right? And I don't think about the cold. He's dealt with the cold. That's not a problem. Chicago's an amazing city. And before you like get in the comment section and get on my head and like, this will never happen, this is so stupid. Well, okay, my channel is called Arturis Fan Club, so there's a little bias here. I'm talking about the Bulls as a Bulls fan. I want my team to acquire Damian Lillard. Who the fuck doesn't? If you're a fan of an NBA team that doesn't have Damian Lillard, you'd be insane not to want Damian Lillard. Okay? That's just what we do here. So, okay, so say in his mind, you know, that's part of this. It's not just making a trade that the Trailblazers will agree to. It's also convincing Dame that this is where he wants to go, so that this is an amicable split from the team. You know, the team has an interest in keeping him happy. You know, like the Harden situation, the Anthony Davis situation a couple of years ago, where, you know, the player gets really disgruntled. They don't want to play. They sit out, things like that. Like that. They're trying to avoid that. They don't want it to get ugly. So, okay, you want to go to Chicago. Okay. You come to Chicago, and this is the thing that I never understood with like the whole LeBron being afraid of MJ's legacy stuff. You come to Chicago and you win another title, your name goes next to Michael Jordan's in the history books, right? Like Chicago Bulls finals MVPs, it goes Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, Zach LaVine, Damian Lillard, maybe, potentially. Like having your name next to that is historic and legendary. Restoring glory to the Bulls franchise would make you, I mean, it'd make you immortal in Chicago, but I mean, you know, you'd be immortalized in the history books, in the record books. So that's a thing, that's a situation that I feel like players dream about. They're not afraid of that. They dream of being in the books next to MJ, you know? So there's a lot of different things at play here that I feel like people dismiss the Bulls because of what's happened in the last decade. Seriously, this is such a new day. It's such a new time. Yeah, I don't agree with that narrative at all. But like I said, I'm biased. So to the details, I wrote this all out. There's going to be an accompanying blog post on arturisfanclub.com/blog. Make sure to check that out. But in order to acquire him, this is going to take some magic from AK. The first things they would need to do would be to stretch and waive the contracts of Al-Farouq Aminu and Tomas Satoransky. Unless you can find a way to get the Blazers to accept them in this deal, I don't see that happening. So in the mock-up I have, we're stretching and waiving those contracts. They are not a part of the trade. You renounce the rights to Lauri Markkanen, or put him in a sign and trade to a different team. We'll get to that later. Renounce the rights to Ryan Arcidiacono, and the big one, the trade itself to acquire Damian Lillard. Some sort of package that includes both Coby White and Patrick Williams. And a quick word on Patrick Williams. I know it would suck to trade him so early in his career. Acquiring Dame is worth it. Just straight up. Bulls fans, it's just true. I love Patrick Williams. I'm super hyped for him. But Zach LaVine and Vooch, they're not getting any younger. And getting Dame is a win now move. And immediately you have a big three that can contend in the playoffs. And with, a couple more smart moves after that, could be a finals contender. And we'll get to that. So Coby White and Patrick Williams are two really talented and high potential young players. That's what you have to trade in order to get superstars in the NBA. But you also have to trade picks. And that's where things get tricky. The Bulls are light on picks right now, and they can't trade the 2022 or 2024 picks due to the rule against trading first round picks in consecutive years. They traded 2021 and 2023 to the Magic, if I have that right. So this is a unique challenge. You can do like far future firsts, which they probably will have to, which is okay. Once again, you're acquiring Damian Lillard. You do it. You might have to get a third team involved and work some magic to make this worth the Trailblazers, worth it to the Trailblazers. So, at that point you start looking at potentially trading Thaddeus Young or potentially trading Troy Brown Jr. or something like that. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to not complicate things and just keep it as 2-team trade, Coby White, Patrick Williams, some crazy first round pick, or, picks, second round picks, whatever. And then, Damian Lillard coming back to Chicago. So the way I have this mapped out, after stretching and waiving those contracts, renouncing the rights, and then making the trade, I have Damian Lillard, who's on a $32 million contract, Zach LaVine, who's on a $19.5 million contract. He needs an extension, but that'll be a different video. Troy Brown Jr. on a $3 million deal, very good value. Thaddeus Young on a $13.5 million deal. You could convince Thaddeus Young to restructure his deal, since he is a huge fan of Zach LaVine, loves this franchise, wants to stick around by all accounts. You might be able to get him to restructure that for a lesser amount. It's potential. And then Vucevic at $26 million. That puts the Bulls right at around $94 million. The projected cap is at 112 and the luxury tax is at 136.6. So still some wiggle room in there to make some moves. That said, though, that starting lineup, Lillard, LaVine, Brown, Thad, Vooch, not a bad starting lineup. You could do a lot worse than that starting lineup. It's the best starting lineup that the Bulls have had since the Rose, Noah Butler years. Probably the best starting five that Dame and Zach have ever played with. And Vooch. So it's not a bad starting five. That's a really good starting five, actually. It's an upgrade over this season for the Bulls, for sure. So now is when you start to get a little tricky with things. So the Bulls want to try to bring back Daniel Tice. You can do that. You have his bird rights. You can go above the salary cap, which you might not even have to at $94 million, and the cap's at 112. He might take like a $13 million deal. You'll be fine. Execute a sign and trade with Lauri Markkanen to another team to acquire some role players. I don't know who really wants Lauri Markkanen at this point, but the pressure is off of like right now. Well, the past couple months, the discussion has been around Lonzo Ball, and we'll talk about Lonzo Ball more later. Dame's just kind of relevant right now, and all this is swirling in my head, and I wanted to get it out. But there's less pressure in a Lauri Markkanen trade to get like Lonzo back. Now you can trade Lauri Markkanen and get like a couple rotational pieces or a couple role players instead of that pressure of trying to bring Lauri Markkanen, or send Lauri Markkanen for like an all-star caliber player. Because it's not necessarily feasible, and you're going to have to put other assets in that trade with Lauri Markkanen anyway. Now it's just Lauri Markkanen and whatever the Dallas Mavericks want to give up or the Spurs want to give up, something like that. So you could probably get a couple rotational pieces that way. I haven't really looked at who might want to trade for him and what the Bulls might be able to get back, but I'm sure there's something out there. Like probably similar to the trade of like trading Daniel Gafford and eventually getting back Troy Brown Jr. and Daniel Tice and Javonte Green, who I actually haven't even mentioned. The Bulls can pick up Javonte Green's option. He could be a part of this team too. So, really not a big deal. And then you have the mid-level exception, which allows you to spend, I think it was around like, last I saw was like $6 or $7 million for teams that are right up against the cap. So think of names like TJ McConnell, Spencer Dinwiddie, Derrick Rose, Serge Ibaka, Bobby Portis, like guys who are going to be free agents this offseason and want to contribute to a contending team. Yeah, I mean, that would be a perfect situation to use that MLE and get a guy who is still talented and still can make some money, but just wants to win. And then along with that, after you do that, you can attract some talented veterans who are willing to take a minimum contract just to play some ball and potentially win a ring. And so that's when you get into the guys like Boogie and stuff like that. So there are a lot of options here to get better and okay, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but like if AK does this right, you pull off this trade for Damian Lillard, you acquire these talented veterans, you use your cap space well, you make some wise moves with Lauri Markkanen, Thad Young, things like that. You could create an honest to God NBA Finals contender. Not just a playoff contender, not just a team that, makes it to the second round or the conference finals. I am talking about an honest to God NBA Finals contender. There's going to be some defensive issues to address with the team that I've kind of laid out here. They still need like a strong wing defender that Troy Brown Jr. could end up developing into. You don't know, but you really want to make sure that that's locked down because you are giving Patrick Williams up. And, in that scenario, you're losing a lot in terms of wing defense. If you wanted to get really crazy with it, you trade Vucevic and try to sign Kawhi Leonard. I'm going to shut up because that's not going to happen. But AK has had a lot of luck so far as executive vice president of the Bulls. I mean, we got the 4th overall pick after getting 7 forever, and it felt like that would never change. Billy Donovan became available at the perfect time. Nikola Vucevic became available at the perfect time. Arturas is aggressive. If Damian Lillard expressed any desire to leave Portland, I'm sure Arturas Karnisovas would be one of the first people on the phone trying to see what he can do to get him. Because you just do not pass up that kind of opportunity. And once again, this is all speculation, but this is what Arturas Karnisovas was hired to do. He wasn't hired to just make the Bulls okay again. He was hired to make the Bulls great. He was hired to make this team an honest to God NBA Finals contender. That's his goal. And that's what he's going to try to do. There are many paths to get there. They're not all easy. They're not going to be fun necessarily. You're going to say bye to some players you like. It's the nature of the business. But, with Damian Lillard having this constant battle between, how good he is and how disappointing his team can be, you just have to consider it. You have to consider it a possibility. Things change so quickly in the NBA. James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, even Kawhi with the Spurs, like things like that. Things change in the blink of an eye. And as a GM, as, you know, a team executive, you have to be predicting those things. You have to be ahead of those things if you want to be able to leverage them. And this is the kind of leverage here that I think Arturas Karnisovas would absolutely jump on. So it's an idea. It's an idea. It is thrown out there, and we'll see, man. I have no idea if it's actually a possibility, but it's fun to talk about. It's fun to speculate on, and we're going to keep speculating on all things Bulls this offseason as we get closer to free agency. But we've also got those player grades coming out like almost every other day on arturasfanclub.com/blog, and you can go check those out right now. There are a ton. I've got my Kobe White video coming up. I've already done the Billy Donovan one, which was super interesting. So we're reviewing the season as it happened, and then we're also looking forward to next season, seeing what kind of moves the Bulls can make, what players are on the radar. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on right now, and this is your number one source for Bulls content made by Bulls fans. Once again, guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. Helps me a lot. And like button, all that fun stuff. I will be back soon. Got some other stuff in the works, so make sure to check out everything on arturasfanclub.com, the podcast, the blog, all that fun stuff, and we'll talk very soon.